Let's make a beginning. Om Brahmanandam Paramasukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadrusham Tattvamasya Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Triguణarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. All right, so with that, we will make a beginning from where we left off yesterday. So yesterday we were talking about the topic being science and Sanatana Dharma, and we were looking at how do we kind of make sense of perception, direct perception, as in how accurate are various forms of measures, and undoubtedly the direct perception, which is through the senses, whatever information we receive through our senses, being eyes, ears, touch, let's call them the senses, and the measurement. So those are accurate, and that is what is called as pratyaksha pramana. And we looked at it yesterday. In comparison to that, everything else doesn't come close to giving the accurate results. Why is it relevant for the topic? It is relevant because if you all recollect, one of the things we said in the very beginning, the day one, was that when we spoke about vidya and avidya, vidya is one which is not perceived through the senses and mind, whereas avidya is the one which is perceived through mind and senses. So whatever I see now, the very fact that I am sitting here and I'm talking to you, this is all direct perception. Whereas certain things which are beyond our five senses and the mind can be arguably said to be present, but it's just that they cannot be perceived. If that is the case, especially when the topic being Atma, that is where we left off yesterday, we at least agreed that there is mind because we all think. But it was difficult for us to establish that we do have an Atma because it is not tangible in any way at all. So this is where the problem lies. And we also looked at the argument yesterday that because the seers, the rishis of the ancient times, had that direct intuition in a way, and their word has to be believed. But the counter argument for that is that if we believe in that way, then we could easily be fooled as well, especially if somebody imagines things or makes it up altogether. So how do we make sense of what we call as the spiritual research or the subjective research? So I'm going to talk about what's happening in the current times. Yesterday, I mentioned about the ancient proponents of spirituality and the modern proponents of spirituality. It goes without saying that all the research has been going in the Western world, particularly in the United States of America. Very little research of this nature goes in India. And yet it's a paradox. It is a contradiction because this is where it is almost ingrained in us that we believe in the concepts of karma and punarjanma and atma, yet very little research goes in. So we have to base our discussions here on the findings which come from the research that has been going on for a few decades at least in United States. Mind you, past life regression therapy is quite popular now, and it is there across the world, and I'm one of the practitioners as well. So past life regression therapy, we will talk about the details of it. The other way is near-death experiences. Now, these are what we would call as the subjective research methodologies. And third one would be the reincarnation research. I hope you all have watched the videos of Brian Wiss' interview, of Dr. Raymond Moody's very short, very meaningful interview, and of Dr. Ian Stevenson's work through Jayant Mehtaji's, Jay Mehta, I think his name is, Jay Mehtaji's video. Jay Mehtaji actually passed away last year. He is a strong proponent of Sanatana Dharma and been a great advocate of it in the United Kingdom. So I hope you all have watched these videos. I would hesitate to say again that if you didn't watch them, it makes your job a little difficult today. Okay. I know, Dr. K.N. Rao, you made a direct message to me, but it will be nice if you can put it to everyone so that everyone reads the message. You put this message in the WhatsApp group as well. Let's hope we can find answers through the sessions, because it is obviously very basic in its nature, the question, and it goes back to the very discussions from day one onwards about what's the relation between senses and perception of and the realization of Atma. So let's hope that we will find answers as we go along for you particularly. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, okay. So I'll explain to you what these three are. By the way, these are books worth buying and reading. These are books by Dr. Brian Wiss. The first one isn't here, which is the most popular, which is Many Masters, Many Lives. And these are the other books: Only Love is Real, Same Soul, Many Bodies, Messages from Masters, and Through Time into Healing. They're all very powerful narrations of spirituality. I would definitely recommend reading Many Masters, Many Lives, and Through Time into Healing is what I remember having a lot of messages from the spiritual masters. Of course, the messages from masters as well. Raymond Moody's Life After Life, it discusses near-death experiences and 20 cases suggestive of reincarnation by Ian Stevenson. And the reason I have Bhagavad Gita here and Viveka Chudamani and Bhagavatam is that you would see a lot of consistencies in Atma Vidya, the concept of Atma Vidya in Bhagavatam, Viveka Chudamani, Bhagavad Gita, as well as the modern descriptions of spirituality in all these books. There will be extremely kind of consistent descriptions as regards to the understanding of afterlife, karma, and reincarnations. Powerful messages indeed in all these books. Okay, so what is past life regression therapy? It can be described as this. It is similar to a hypnotic approach. Okay, usually the therapists come from a background of psychology or mind sciences, let us say, and they are trained in traditional psychotherapy, a lot of them, but nowadays people from other walks of life also get training in past life regression therapy. So what does a psychotherapist normally do? They actually sit with a client, take a detailed history of their psychological problems, and they look at healing. How do they heal these problems? And the sessions actually include some basic fundamentals such as good listening skills and empathy. And these are fundamentally important skills that a therapist needs to have in any psychotherapy session. Same goes for past life regression therapy. Now, if we compare psychodynamic psychotherapy, which is what most psychotherapists would be trained in, apart from CBT and such, the work is on the conscious mind. Conscious mind meaning that whatever I'm able to kind of work with and process here and now using my volition, my will to kind of recall my memories. There'll be some work done through subconscious as well, but it's only through your conscious state, as in you are widely awake and you have not kind of relaxed your mind, whereby your conscious state has really kind of been subdued. In past life regression therapy, hypnosis is used, and hypnosis shouldn't be mixed up or confused with the idea of doing the tricks on the stage. That would be something different. But hypnosis is by and large a process of relaxing your mind so deeply, so kind of almost like a state of sleep, but not sleeping, whereby your conscious mind and your conscious awareness of where you are in your surroundings is subdued to the minimum possible. Only when it is subdued to the minimum possible does the subconscious mind have the opportunity to come into the forefront and deal with the work that is required in past life regression therapy. So what does past life here mean, and what is regression? Regression is going backwards, and past life here actually means past lives beyond this current life, as in the lives that I have lived in the past based on the concept of reincarnation. Okay. Now, the subconscious mind has no limits, and it stores vast memories, and the memories can actually go way back into time, whatever we can theoretically say that the beginning as such. Okay, so that's the model that past life regression therapy works on. Okay, so the client is, just as in the picture, the client through a process of deep relaxation is allowed to reach a state of full relaxed mind, and then the therapist gives certain instructions and just allows them to typically the question would be, go back to the first time you ever had this problem, and it may take the client to the problem in this current life, or it could be in any past lives, and they would talk about it. And when they talk about it, whatever the emotional distress that they have, the therapist aims to heal that distress at that point where it all started. Okay. Now, what is important in the context of our discussion here is that not only are we talking about past lives, but beautifully, a lot of these clients actually narrate very similar accounts of the end day of their lives and how they have this out of body kind of an experience. Out of body in the sense they talk about leaving the body and moving towards a light, or in fact even going to take birth in a womb, and all these are very consistently described by a lot of people. Here comes the question: how do we know that this client is not imagining and making up stories? And this is what we discussed yesterday. Now let's assume that I do it only on one client. I, as a therapist, could be biased because I have a particular interest in karmic concepts, and I want to force upon my concepts onto the client. That is entirely possible. So there is a bias from the therapist. On the other hand, the client, with all the eagerness, is trying to kind of visualize and mix up fantasies and narrate things which are not really being experienced. Okay, so this is possible. With explanations set aside, let us assume that the client has narrated whatever has been narrated. If not just one client, but if 10 clients, if 10 such clients actually report similar accounts. What then happens is the believability in the account increases. But in research, we use the word called power of the study. The power of the study is very much, it's directly proportionate to the sample size. So if it is not 10, but if it is 100 clients, then the believability increases further. But if it is not 100, but 1,000, 10,000, and so on, the power of the study increases tremendously. Not just that, if such accounts are actually reported not from one center, like let's say Srinivas's clinic here, not one center, but multiple centers, then the believability increases further as well, because it's a multi-centered study. And if the multi-centers don't just come from one country, but come from different parts of the world, it further increases the power and believability of the study. This is the best we can do with subjective evidence, because these are all people's narrations, and believability is always going to be questionable. Therefore, we have no choice but to bring in a nice methodology to how do we gather information, how open and fair are we in asking questions, how open and fair are we in documenting whatever the client says without filtering information, without engaging any biases. All these are important, as well as gathering information from more sources. This is how methodological the therapists and the researchers have been in the American context. I hope I have been able to explain what past life regression therapy is through this. I'll narrate a case scenario, and then it may be helpful further. So in this state, the person can access these memories as they are not bound by time and space. Memories of being in mother's womb in this birth and accessing past lives is described. Traveling in cosmos, meeting other Atmas, including the elevated ones, such as masters, possibly devatas. So in our context, so in English, the terminology, the word masters is used. And if we relate it to, let's say, Sanatana Dharmic Indic scriptures, then we can equate it to devatas and rishis. And the clients then talk about learning lessons from these masters through messages. And some may ask a question, what language do they speak in? It is an intuitive language. It's not a language, but it's an intuitive kind of somewhat telepathic in nature, is how the clients describe. Learning about karma and how to make amends in life to be free of karma to attain moksha. And several such descriptions have been recorded by various practitioners after thousands of PLRT sessions. So I'm actually going to narrate an account of a client I have done the PLRT session on. And we'll come to a stage in this session right now where he is nicely relaxed and he's already kind of spoken of a past life, and we are talking about his journey in the cosmos between lives. So this is where he is, and he is describing that he was being accompanied by guiding atmas. I think I should use the word guiding souls if it is his wording. He is on his way through the cosmic journey, traveling in a fast moving vehicle, which is navigating between planets of other galaxies. He asked these Atmas for spiritual guidance. I'll stop here, just read it and see if it is believable. Accompanied by guiding Atmans, or let us say guiding souls, he is on his way through the cosmic journey, traveling in a fast moving vehicle which is navigating between planets of other galaxies. And he asked these Atmans for spiritual guidance. Please mention your thoughts as in as you read it. What does it make you feel? The believability, and if it actually relates to something you have heard or read anywhere. No one?
I mean, Shrikant here. I'm not able to grasp it. His experience is little over my head
Sure.
for me.
Yeah. Everybody else thinks the same? So that's why it's important to go through the videos as well. I hope you have.
Yeah, yes, but maybe I could not
And there
connect.
should be more interest in talking about it. And yeah, okay. Others? Anyone? I mean, was it difficult to grasp what I was talking about?
No, as in sense, no. I mean, it looks very obviously. I have seen the video of reincarnation. I have seen the video of brain as well. And the previous few slides looks really like that. Here, I'm not able to connect. When you say it's traveling in a fast-moving vehicle between planets, suddenly I got in a mind it's a rocket maybe. But at the same time, this ask for Atmas for spiritual guidance is something I'm not able to really connect both of them. I was thinking he'll tell about his past life more easily. Hey, this is what happened in my life. This is what I'm right now. Kind of a experience I was expecting in this slide.
Yeah, okay. So as I explained, I'm only giving a glimpse of a part of segment of the entire session. The session actually spoke of past lives, but it's not included here because it's not relevant. So there's a reason why I put it here, but I just want to see whether it is believable, whatever is written here. It'll be nice if people actually communicate rather than stay quiet.
I think.
I'll wait for people to respond because it's rather not a happy sight to have a monologue. Actually, a lot of webinars expect people to switch on their videos so that actually we know that people are really engaged rather than just putting it on and doing their work separately somewhere. Would it be good if everyone switches on their videos? Those who have not switched on the videos are either not near the device or they're not engaging. Can I know the reasons why the rest are not switching on the videos?
My camera is not working.
All right. Okay. Communication is very important, and I actually kind of make it a point to have these sessions interactive, because what we consider as didactic teaching, me delivering and you listening, just goes over the head. It doesn't do justice to Sanatana Dharma, is how I see. I don't want to be a bad example of telling, making it difficult for people to follow Sanatana Dharma. I want others to switch on their videos, please, those who are able to.
No, can I speak? Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever you said here is, to certain extent is believable and to certain extent is not believable. Because we, in our real life, we don't experience the things, first of all. And whatever is given in our scriptures, some of them say the same way. So this may be imaginary. He might have read those and he might imagine that, okay, this is like that. So, but one experience which I wanted to quote here is Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He said about birth of Swami Vivekananda. He said in his deep meditation, he had gone through the vast space where he had gone through so many divine beings. In that, there is a Saptarishi Mandal. In that, one Rishi, he imagined himself like a child, a small boy, and he embraced that Rishi. In his deep meditation, he just opened his eyes and had a glance, a look at this child, conveying the message that I am with you, I will come to the earth to do your work. So then he came back and he stopped there and he said that the same person who is in the Saptarishi Mandal, a Rishi, born as Vivekananda, that's what he has given message regarding the birth of Swami Vivekananda. So his experience also in the similar lines went.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because we are looking at believability and relatability, and you were able to relate to what you have read somewhere, especially from Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's own narration. So let's look at some parallels with what is written in Bhagavatam. This is from Telugu Potana Bhagavatam. This is from the accounts of Dhruva when he is accompanied by two devatas who come on behalf of Narayana. And they came in a vehicle, and they were all traveling. So as we traveled far and far, very quickly, we went past the planets. We then went past the lokas and the Saptarishi Mandala, and kept traveling far till we reached the Haripadam. So if we compare these two accounts, there's really less likelihood that this 18-year-old had read Bhagavatam or any such kind of traditional scriptures to be able to quoting all this. So nevertheless, we can doubt believability, particularly of accounts. So we can relate that the guiding Atmas, yes, they were Devatas who came to pick up Dhruva. The vehicle, yes, he was traveling in it, and very quickly, fast-moving vehicle, it says here, and went past the lokas. And here the 18-year-old in our session was talking about navigating between planets of other galaxies. We're not talking about even our galaxy, other galaxies. So it's actually been a fast journey way ahead. So interestingly, we can see some parallels here. So then, actually, Potana Bhagavatam has a very good description of what can be considered as space travel. traveling beyond the worlds, their lords, and the residents in an extensive darkness, beyond which there are further worlds. I worship him who exists beyond all this and is the only one shining bright. Okay, so, okay, we continue the description by the 18-year-old. So now, as a therapist, he's actually kind of in the company of these elevated souls, and he's actually asking for spiritual guidance as well. And this is how typically conversations happen, as the therapist wants to know what is happening, what are the messages that they are receiving, and so on. If you read the books of Brian Weiss and all that, there'll be a lot of those narrations, very, very powerful ones. So he asked, what is spiritual evolution? Mind you, the 18-year-old does have his mother who is actually into spirituality. And so there is definitely that spiritual connect. There's no doubt about it. So all souls come to earth to learn lessons is what this elevated Atma, the soul, has said. These lessons are like tickets for you to learn higher philosophy of life. Soul must realize God. Realization of God is spiritual evolution. God is the creator of existence. He is present in everything. Without him, nothing exists. And this is very familiar for those who understand the Sanatana Dharmic philosophy, the omnipresence, and the fact that Anima, Garima, that kind of Ashtaishwarya kind of thing, where the tiniest and the greatest is there, he's there in everything. Again, if we go back to Bhagavatam description, Hari, the all-pervasive divine cosmic energy, is present in everything. And similarly, everything is present in Hari. There isn't anything that is not part of him. Actually speaking, these are very consistent descriptions in various books that we would come across. Then he further asked, guide me about life. The message was, you should balance spiritual and material evolution. You should go with the flow of life. Listen to the heart. It tells you only good things. Don't listen to the mind. It will tell you things that preaches you unfavorable things. So that's a short narration over very important snippets, just to give an essence of what life beyond life, or the cosmic life, tends to be like, or our understanding and the consistency of information from modern and ancient, let's call it spiritual research, because ancient rishis were spiritual researchers. And the reason why we are mentioning it is that this is all part of subjective research experience, and only when many accounts can be taken into consideration do we gain the confidence. Even then, we may still doubt it because they are not tangible in terms of sensory perception. So therefore, what would one call spirituality is, as he was nicely putting, I thought it will be important to connect it here. Following one's heart, one may go wrong in his human life, but not in your cosmic life, because let's say, example, your heart says that you should do something, but your mind says that it is actually a foolish thing, or you will lose your face, or you will lose money and whatnot. So you take the logical step of not doing it, but in actual fact, you won. You possibly even win in this current life. It's not necessary that you are winning in the cosmic life. Or on the other hand, if you follow your heart and do something and you actually ended up making a loss in this current life, as long as you are true to yourself, you have definitely gained in the cosmic life, even if you have lost temporarily right now. So there are a lot of experiences one can relate to. I think there are a couple more slides, but yeah, let's go through that. So he says, I reached a door-like entrance and met several Atmans. They appear like white forms and communicated through mind. They were busy chatting about their experience back on Earth. Thereafter, I traveled through several dimensions. It is difficult to explain. And I reached a stage where an evolved Atma said that I have to learn lots of lessons. Goal is to merge with the ultimate God. Then I asked him whether he's able to come back to take birth. Can he actually kind of go through that process? So this is how it works, by the way. So the conversation between therapist and the client. So thereafter, I'm going through the process of rebirth. I've consciously known throughout that I need to learn more lessons. And he said, rebirth is a complicated process. I'm now giving life to a lifeless body. And there was a smile on his face when he was saying this. And the soul needs to enter a fetus. I can see my mother, she's happy. And I can see my family, they're all happy. Again, these are very consistent descriptions by clients from various parts of the world. So there are lots of similarities between modern and ancient kind of findings. Like, for instance, the idea of cosmic time and the idea that souls actually take birth in groups. We may be assuming different relations in each life. For instance, we have this notion that we are married for 7 lives, which means that you are likely to be born again in a group, of course, a group of 2, repeatedly. Or sometimes it could be other relations. There was another client who actually said that he was actually born in the same household, but actually in the last life, he was a servant in that same house, as in the ancient, the grandparents' house it was. Sometimes brothers and sisters, and other times friends or parents. We all know the story of Ganesha and how Parvati has molded and then gave life to it. If you read Michael Newton's books, it is clearly described there that he asks his clients, actually the Michael Newton sessions actually go into a lot of depth into the soul state, not the past lives. So actually quickly migrates through he doesn't pay much time in past lives. He actually goes into the in-between soul states. And his descriptions are of, so the client's descriptions are of elevated souls are given tasks to create life from substance by experimenting and perfecting the art. And these could be trees, it could be planets, it could be animals, it could be flowers, it could be anything like that. It's just they're creating, manifesting things through the elements. Now, one may ask the question then, these are, can we actually relate the same to devatas in our concept? Why not? So after all, devatas, rishis and all are definitely kind of elevated souls, and they are in other planes, and they are actually given tasks to manage things. Michael Newton makes this mention here, that the beginning with ancient Indian scriptures called Vedas, followed by later Eastern texts, astral planes have historically represented a series of rising dimensions above the physical or tangible world, which blend into the spiritual. And these regions have been experienced by people over thousands of years through meditative out-of-body observations of the mind. Okay. Souls can become rocks to capture the essence of destiny. Souls can become trees for serenity. Souls can become water, butterflies, whales. It can become everything, basically. Animate, inanimate, everything. Okay. What does Upanishad say? There's one of the Upanishads which actually I will send the video through perhaps tomorrow, and which talks about the same thing. Vrikshe kagaha vadanti soham soham So the birds in the trees say soham, soham. I am that, I am that. Nakshatrani chandraha vadanti soham, soham. The stars and the moon say I am that, I am that. The water says soham, I am that. So we can see through that as well what is written here in Michael Newton's account, that the same Chaitanya, the soul form, is there in birds, planets, water, and of course, humans as well. Okay, so that's to understand the consistency. We are not here referring to the concept of soul. That's not the purpose of the presentation today. The purpose is to look at consistencies in accounts between ancient and modern times. Souls can also become amorphous without substance and totally integrate into a particular feeling, such as compassion, to sharpen their sensitivity. There were other researchers who actually very much clearly endorsed what we would call as the idea of samskaras. The thoughts, feelings, attitudes, and experiences, they're all unconsciously carried forward from past lives into this life. That's the whole concept of karma. Whatever you have, it's all done, it's all imprinted, whether it was thoughts, words, actions, feelings, whatever it may be. It's all imprinted. Nothing is lost. So these actually play a role in how you are currently leading your life. And if you develop the right kind of recognition and the knowledge of how to deal with them, you may actually have the advantage of shedding those to actually progress spiritually. Michael Newton talks about how this universe is a timeless mental world. And that is the true reality, while all else is an illusion created for various benefits. So I don't know if I can answer Dr. Mr. K.N. Rao's question here. He was asking about what's the connection between realizing self or the Atman and the senses. As I said, it's a very fundamental question because it was already covered from day one, in the sense that we are engaging with this world here and now using the senses to perceive things. And the understanding is that it is nothing but the manifestation is nothing but Maya. And the unmanifest is the reality, it is the truth. The unmanifest is the cosmic divinity, the Paramatma, and the unmanifest, but the intelligent, the constant, which had no birth, will not perish, and does not have any vikaras. It does not develop any transformations. There's no transformation of any sort. And nirguna, which is devoid of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamo gunas. And that is the reality. That is the truth. That is the state of Atma. And that is you. That is you. That is you and me. And that is me, as my reality is that I am the Atman. That realization isn't necessarily possible. It's not necessary. It is impossible to be assessed or perceived by the Laukika senses that are given to us. But they can be used for a journey towards realization. So do animals have souls? Yes, all living things have souls, but they have very simple fragments of mind energy. This is according to Michael Newton. Then, unconscious mind is not bound by time, logic, and space. Again, this is a consistency between modern and ancient. The Atman is not subject to tarka, logic. And so basically it's the same description. Then we look at the cyclical nature of cosmos through Michael Newton's description, and also how we understand the Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya. Universes are created to live and die for the use of the source. We actually talk about the idea of Leela. It is all for the play. It is all for a play, is as to put it simply, because we don't really have an understanding of what is the real purpose of why the universe exists in the first place, or why it goes through cyclical phases. But to simply say, it is just stated as it is for a Leela, it is a play, it's a cosmic play. But that's not really going to be a very elaborate answer. It is just a simple answer. But we don't know what the use of the source is. But it is for the use of the source. So it's a pulsatile nature. So therefore, the universes are created, they live, and they die. All the cosmos is a single substance of which we are a part. So Sarva Vyapi. Paramatma, Parabrahman is a Sarva Vyapi. It is there everywhere, in every substance. And God is not an external manifestation as religions would want you to believe, but everything that is. So it is there, although it is, we can call it as a it. It is there in everything, and there is nothing without it. And everything is in it, right? So that's the way Michael Newton and again the ancient scriptures actually consistently talk about the same. In the beginning, there is an outward migration of a soul energy from the source. Afterward, our lives are spent moving inward towards cohesion and to unite. Again, consistent. There is an explosive release and then a returning. Yes, the source is pulsatile, it pulsates. The source is all around us as if we are inside a beating heart. We need to remember that we are eternal beings with cosmos as our home. I think it was Srinivas who asked about what is cosmic life, and that's possibly the way we can understand. We need to remember that we are eternal beings with cosmos as our home. If cosmos is our home, these are all tiny specks. Whatever our lives are, tiny specks and tiny stations that we get down to for a bit of work or bit of recreation or bit of a study. Michael Newton also talks about sages. Sages are the true watchers of earth, They choose to stay and help people directly because they are dedicated to earth. That's the same concept as rishis. There is enough evidence as per Lee Irwin, who has actually written in the Journal of Religions. It's a systematic review of various articles, and this is a part of the summary that I'm showing here. And it says evidential sources from diverse fields of research, as well as a growing body of ethnographic and therapeutic accounts, strongly supports a historical trajectory in which reincarnation has become an increasingly believable possibility without dependency upon any specific religious convictions. One wonders if the future of Sanatana Dharma is going to be the United States of America. All the research goes there, and possibly there are a lot more takers for Sanatana Dharma. Some of the best Hollywood movies that I have seen, although I'm not watching much of late, have been beautifully scripted from a spiritual perspective. So, yeah, so I think those in the United States can actually explore these lot more in your own backyard. I also shared another video of Dr. Sam Parnia, who is intensivist in New York, one of the hospitals in New York. And they basically conducted a multi-centered study where they studied extension of consciousness beyond death. So how did they do that? They actually they actually kind of, from a medical point of view, declared a person dead from a clinical point of view when the various parameters have stopped. And they obviously the persons have not died, they have returned back to life after a while. So this is how he narrates it. And they have done some MRI scans and whatnot. And it's as good as a study one can do about extension of consciousness beyond death, which then basically means that there's something which goes beyond physical death. And there will be a lot more studies happening in future about extension of consciousness beyond death. One can say that this is an extension of near-death experiences research by Dr. Raymond Moody. So I didn't mention about Dr. Raymond Moody's research methodology. He basically was interviewing clients who had been almost like dead, but they returned back to life. And in those few minutes that they were kind of dead, they were narrating, those who had experienced had out-of-body experiences. They described having seen a white light or having had a sense of immortality seep in, and their lives have changed because they have become a lot more stronger and courageous because they've realized that there's no death. There's no such thing as death when it comes to who I am. And the death is only for the physical body. So it's not about training themselves. It just automatically kind of dawned on them that they're actually immortal. And reincarnation studies by Ian Stevenson are worth, I'll share a video tomorrow again, just something I received today. The lot of narrations of reincarnations and how childhood memories actually lead to the family of past life. And the researcher goes and gets an account of not only the child, but also the place where they lived in the past life, and they correlate everything and document and look at the consistencies. That's a beautiful piece of research as well by him. And I think there are a few who are following his footsteps in doing similar research. So I'll break there for a while just to see if anybody has any questions before we move on further. Today I was actually reading one of the texts, Nirukta. Nirukta is one of those angas of Vedas. And there they mentioned about rishis, who is a seer, the drashta, who is the one who actually sees. And they were describing, I'll just read it out. I didn't have time to put it on the slide. Where is it? Just a minute. Yeah. Seers have direct intuitive insight into duty. They, by oral instructions, handed down the hymns to later generations who were destitute of the direct intuitive insight. We're talking about very ancient times, because Nirukta was written at least during Upanishadic times. So the rishis had the direct intuitions, but the next generations were not capable of it, just like how we are not so capable of it. So hence, whatever they have developed as intuitions and direct knowledge, they passed it down as oral instructions, because the next generations were not so good or not equipped with receiving that. The later generations, declining in the power of oral communication, compiled this work. Further problem was that the oral tradition gave way to written traditions. And written traditions, when they started, that is when the auxiliary Vedic treatises like the Nirukta and all have started becoming more important. And so it just goes to say that the capacity that they had during the ancient times of direct intuitions is not easily possible in the current times. But it's good that our modern researchers have found different methods to tap into that. There's nothing wrong. Okay, any questions or any comments at this point of time before we move on?
This is Shrikant. I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that there are instances of a person telling about his past life, right? And instances of his past life, what is his spiritual journey at that point. That we always think that obviously God is everywhere, right? It could be a rock, it could be a tree, and everywhere. Right? Do we have instances where we heard that I was something else in the past life and I'm a human in this life? Or what is it if I do mistakes here in this life, what will I be born as in my next life?
That is okay. There are two parts to it. So the first part is where you say whether people have narrated whether they have been something like a rock or a tree and so on in the past lives. Yeah, people have narrated those. Not you don't actually see that in Brian Weiss's books, but there are other accounts who have described having been a rock and all that. And I had a client who actually spoke of being a swan. But there are other accounts for sure which talk about inanimate objects. But about future, there is nothing about future. That one thing we need to be aware is that I think the divine design is so sophisticated that it doesn't allow us to really tap into every secret of this cosmos. Whatever we are able to do through this kind of regressions or where even the seers, the rishis, I don't think even they were able to grasp the entire truth of the cosmos. How do we know that? They themselves have written, they themselves have said on several occasions. That is the humility of our researchers, that even though they knew so much compared to everyone else in this world, they still had the humility to say that we don't know everything.
Right.
The Devas said the same, and the Rishis also said the same. So it is not possible to kind of tap into everything.
I agree. As a follow-up, maybe, if I'm not taking too much of the time, we heard that, I know that a soul, a person is reincarnated, reborn every time. The reason for that, he's been reborn because he still has to do, he has still karma which has to be complete, or in other ways you said he has to exhaust all his vasanas, in different terminology, everyone knows about it, so that he can reach the ultimate goal, right? That means a kid is right now born, might be born again and again till he actually exhausts all his vasanas. That is when his soul actually reaches the God. Does it make sense?
Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Even for the jnanavan, even for the knowledgeable one, it is only after many births that he gets the ripe state. He reaches that ripe state to be able to kind of, dream of moksha.
Dream of moksha. There you go. Okay.
So we would have obviously been taking thousands of births by now.
By now. Thank you.
That's what it says. Saha durlabha. Very rare.
Yes, it's a very rare opportunity.
Very rare.
Again, see, the best part is that we are not in a hopeless state.
You're right. We are
It
not
always gives redemption.
As Adi Shankara says, and as Annapurna Madam is now saying, the very fact that we have been able to have a human birth now is an opportunity.
Correct.
To progress.
Right. That is the biggest. I mean, I always heard this. I don't know from where.
Adi Shankara would say it.
Yeah, just below us is
Manushyatvam, Mumukshatvam. What's the third? Manushyatvam, Mumukshatvam. And I think Satpurushanam Sahavasaha, something like that. So all those three. Manushyatvam, to be able to have the Manushya life. Mumukshatvam, to be having the zeal to go towards moksha. And the third would be always to be in the company of Satpurushas.
Satsanga.
So that is very important. All those three are extremely important for spiritual sadhana. Only with Manushyatvam is it possible, basically. That's what it is. That's the fundamental requirement.
Thank you.
Can I share?
Yeah.
What my friend told me. They belong to a group of meditators, and they use the Sushumna Kriya Yoga to meditate. And about this astral bodies. So she was explaining that many times we may feel somebody passing by. We may not even see or hear, or it's not in a state of hallucination or anything, but many times it may just happen. So according to her, people who are have a meditative mind, maybe seeing some of those astral bodies around us, maybe experiencing rather in a very brief split second, somebody around us. So maybe there are these souls around us. But I don't know, when we are living, whether we can explain it as there are souls around us. But it happens sometimes. And again, I repeat, it's not because of any hallucinative mind or illusion or anything. Just as something passing, just some observation. Anybody who can say something about it?
So anybody had an experience of similar nature, you
mean?
Had
an experience, yes.
Or has known of anybody who has spoken of such, what is loosely called as paranormal experiences?
Those terms are
parapsychology.
Paranormal, they'll say, but just she says a meditative mind can see these.
So the way we at least need to appreciate going forward, we had a discussion yesterday in our Telugu session on a similar topic, and the idea is to have an open mind in where whatever the other person is saying and narrating, and we don't need to be judgmental either way. We can just have an open mind to make sure that we listen to their account, respect what they are saying. It's not necessary that whether we agree or not, that's a secondary thing. The danger of interjections is that they stop, they shy away, and they wouldn't talk about it one-on-one. One of the biggest challenges I think we'll have to overcome in an Indian research setting here, I'll have to take an initiative at some point, is we are very quick to pass judgments and stop the other person from expressing what their true experience was. Or sometimes they may collude the information with other falsification of their memory. So we need to train them as well to make sure that their account is true to the experience. And similarly, the person who is hearing it has to be maintaining that non-judgmental kind of an approach to receiving the information. Only when we capture a lot more of such information can we actually make sense of all that we are talking about. And this is what people have been doing. Ian Stevenson has demonstrated how it should be done. That's what I'm talking about. This man who is a renowned psychiatrist, he's changed his path. He interviewed young children. He developed a methodology in how to interview them, how to interview parents, how to interview past life parents or past life acquaintances, how not to contaminate information. And that's the nature of a true researcher. So we need to inculcate that wherever we are, if we can. Okay.
And
Let's
basically, the Amavasya Tarpanam and these things are done with the belief and with the strong belief that they reaches our forefathers.
The
They are
Pitrakarma.
reaching our Pitrukarmalu.
Yes.
They reach our forefathers.
Yeah. So it's all fascinating account, and more we actually look into it, we can actually connect the dots. So all that looks like a myth starts making sense at some point of time. Okay. All right. Let's move on. So we already looked at how it is a little difficult, how our mind is easily tricked to not, consider these as true. So is it possible for the mind to grasp the absolute truth? No, not really. And perhaps that's the reason why the universal truth has always been, although it has been the same, it was never easy to be realized. And its misrepresentation is what has possibly led to formation of so many religions. And a weak and a vulnerable mind is one which is going to succumb to false ideas. I'm sure people know this story, and this comes from one of our ancient fables. Coincidentally, actually, I found out that there is a precursor to even this story, which goes to the Devatas and Asuras. Perhaps I'll use that in the next webinar whenever I schedule it. So anyway, it's like this, isn't it? There are these blindfolded kids. Let's assume they have never seen an elephant, and the teacher brings them to a zoo, and blindfolded they're expected to touch the body, feel and describe what the elephant looks like. And naturally, the guy who's holding the tail, he feels it and he says, the elephant is something like soft and wriggly. I think it's like a snake, he says. Elephant is a snake, he says. And the guy who's holding the trunk, he's actually holding it something sharp and pointed. Elephant is a rock. So when actually they remove their blindfolds is when they realize that what they perceived to be true with their senses was not actually the truth. The truth was beyond their perception. They were blindfolded. They were only feeling it, perceiving through other four senses. Now that the blindfolds were removed, they had this extra sense. They could understand the absolute truth. Similarly, imagine if beyond our five senses, we are given an extra sense, the sixth one. And now suddenly we say, oh, yeah, now I can understand the cosmic working. So it's like that. So there is always this possibility that the absolute truth is beyond what we can recognize. So there's therefore a difference between perception and reality. But the perception is so strong because it is believable. So it's so believable and so strong that it always overshines or overrules what may be considered as reality, and hence we dismiss the reality more easily, but we hold on to perception a lot more strongly. So Maya is like a cosmic delusion that promotes avidya. So avidya, as we have looked at, is a work of the work of the senses, right? And it makes it believe everything to be true. And Maya is that which works towards it. Perception makes us believe something to be true, but the reality is something very different. All right. It is so difficult even for the human mind to grasp. As I was mentioning earlier, Brahma himself declared to Narada that absolute knowledge is beyond him. Even Brahma doesn't know the absolute truth, is what he said. Hence, humans and devatas have been making a constant effort for millennia to understand what is the working of this cosmos. Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? Nachiketa was also asking the same questions to Yama. What is death? He says. And Yama replies saying, look, boss, these are very difficult questions to answer. Please don't ask these questions. You ask for something else, some enjoyments and something you can, fulfill your life. I'll grant those. But don't ask me these difficult questions, is what Yama says. Of course, he answers whatever he needs to tell Nachiketa, but it's as difficult as that. We looked at this, but I'll just need to quickly go through this. While truth is one, we falter in understanding it. And if we look at the documented history, which is more recent, we observe that attempts have been made to capture this vast knowledge and box it as religion. And in addition, they have been declared as absolute truth and passed down the succeeding generations, leading to stagnation in the quest of truth. It's like this. For instance, somebody goes to the mountains and the stream of water is ever flowing, right? It's ever flowing and ever fresh. And this guy has a bottle. He captures the water and he comes back to his village saying, I found water. This is the truth. This is the truth. What happens after a while is that the water in that bottle goes stale. It's stale because stagnation has led to no progression at all, and it has become stale. It's the same thing with books saying that we've captured the truth. There's no truth beyond this book. Come read it, follow it, obey it. Otherwise, these are the consequences. It's a stagnation. There's no progression there. So, and that's the way we need to understand. So truth has to be understood as that one permanent reality, this cosmos which is unchanging. Spiritual science is an individual search within to find the truth. So to help humanity to break the shackles of Maya and to teach them spiritual values, one sage travels tirelessly to inspire one and all. Do you know who that could be? That one sage who traveled tirelessly, the Rishi.
Adi
Shankaracharya.
Narada.
Correct. Yes, Narada.
So Narada is my guru. Why? Narada was in the previous kalpa, in the previous cycle, cosmic cycle. He was a boy who was basically serving a group of rishis. And they were so impressed with his devotion towards them and service that they gave him upadesha on how to go and meditate and find the absolute truth himself. And I'm shortening the story, of course. And he goes into the forest, he meditates, and he has this glimpse. He has this glimpse of the absolute truth. And he's distracted and he loses it. And he once again kind of goes into a state of devotion, meditation, so on. And finally, anyway, the Parama Narayana presents himself there, and he says that you will be born as one of my favorite disciples in the next Kalpa, and you'll be called Narada. See, Narada, what did he do? He gained the knowledge, but it was upon him to take that knowledge to each and every one. And therefore, he traveled tirelessly everywhere. He constantly remembered Narayana through Nitya Narayana Namasmarana. And at the same time, he would go to children like Dhruva, or the one in the womb like Prahlada, or the Asuras, various Asuras, the Devas. He has been to each and every one. He did not even differentiate whether they're rich or poor, old or young, Asura or Asura, and tirelessly went and spread the word of Sanatana Dharma. Therefore, he is my Guru. All right. Okay. So anyway, that's him. So I'm going to now switch gears. We are done with foundation. We are done with foundation. And Narada, in his Bhakti Sutras, talks about Satsangatyam. So we'll talk about Satsanga and finish for today. Mahat Sangat Sudurlabho Agamyo Amogascha Labhyate Apitat Kripa Eva. He says that it is very difficult to find company of truth seekers. It is not possible to know how that happens. However, once the meeting takes place, it is a magnificent union. In fact, such Satsangatyam is only possible by divine grace. So one can say that you're all here by divine grace. I'm fortunate to have you all here. So this is a Satsangatyam. We are truth seekers. And to not belittle this idea, it is one of those pillars of effective practice of Sanatana Dharma. So I talk about 4 effective pillars of Sanatana Dharma practice. One being Satsanga. Wherever you are, always be in a Satsanga. Second would be Grihastha Dharma, because 95% of us are Grihasthas, or will enter into Grihastha phase. Second would be Grihastha Dharma. Third would be Purushartha. And fourth would be Yoga, principles of Ashtanga Yoga. If only we understand these 4 and practice them effectively, whereby Grihastha Dharma is the key stage that we all are in on a day-to-day basis, we will be actually practicing Sanatana Dharma quite effectively. So Satsangam is one of them, one of those 4 pillars. How does it help? It helps you to build a meaningful life, to evolve spiritually. It is equally important for families, particularly for kids. You would have a natural desire to stay in the path of realization of divinity within, and that's how the Satsanga helps. It also helps you to develop the spiritually charged atmosphere for the group. Each one of us are adding that spiritual environment to the charging of the spiritual environment. Sometimes, if it's not necessarily a spiritual union, it could at least be an association of the right conduct for social welfare, like, the animal welfare thing, or flood victims of some sort, medical help, whatever it may be. Those are all still definitely good starting points. Or mingling with even families and friends with whom we can be our true selves. A lot of you perhaps spend weekends meeting friends and families for dinners or some sort of parties. And I won't be surprised if you talk the same things over and over again, the same politics, the same movies, and you possibly feel that, oh, come on, we're going to do the same thing over and over again. That's really not a satsangam, frankly speaking. That is not. It is a sangha, but it's not a sat sangha. Am I saying that you should let go of it? Yes and no. Sorry to say, if I'm disappointing you. Yes and no. If you are able to find the right families and the friends with whom you are your true self, you can open up, you can share how you feel, and you are also able to do the same thing by, being welcoming and warm and all that. That is definitely a yes. But where it drains you down, it contaminates your spiritual kind of aura that you are developing, all that is washed off in a jiffy just by those contaminated kind of associations. So that would be a no, if I'm disappointing anybody here. Learn to avoid meaningless overwork of mind to keep it busy. Meaningless entertainment of sense organs. Shallow socializing for the sake of passing time. I knew of one couple or two families actually while I was in Singapore. Apparently, they would meet every night at 10 o'clock and spend until 12 or 1 o'clock. For what? Just to pass time. Endless discussions on politics and news and so on. So any of these are a no-no for a satpata, the follower of path of truth. Make efforts to fit in the society. Yes, you should. You should be able to tolerate differences. But you should also be protecting yourself, not to be vulnerable, because there are bullies around. There will be bullies who would bully you or your family for the faith, your own ideology, for your own kind of practices, or for who you are, possibly. If you are, there are a lot of people, I myself have experienced this, particularly among Indian circles when I was in UK. I didn't experience that in the among the British circles. They would say, come on, have non-veg, what will happen? Nothing will happen. There are so many Brahmins who actually eat. I know that. They actually secretly tuck away the jandyam, as we call it, and eat it secretly. These narrations may be true or not, but the objective of the person who is trying to entice you to do it is extremely, extremely corrupt. And so there are people who try to humiliate you for what you believe in, what you practice. There is nothing wrong in staying away from such people. They are not the right ones. They do not understand what satsangatyam would actually mean. Stay away from opportunists and backstabbers. Trust yourself. Don't let yourself be vulnerable. In your satsanga or family, if someone commits a mistake, do take them to task, but don't leave them while they are making efforts to mend their ways. It's important because we are very easy to dissociate ourselves from anybody who commits a mistake. Nowadays, it is so easy to be seen to commit mistakes because the scrutiny is a lot more. Stay away from all those who take pleasure in rubbing salt into your wounds. So therefore, for all this, satsanga is very essential. If we only look at, sorry, I don't have time with me. I don't know what. We're almost done. Let's hope that I can finish in the next few minutes. Let's look at the couple of shlokas from Bhagavad Gita and Vivek Chudamani. Not Vivek Chudamani, the Shankaracharya's Bhajagovindam. So Bhagavad Gita says, Dhyayato Vishayan Punsaha Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Bhijayate. Krodhat Bhavati Sammohaha Sammohat Smriti Vibramaha Smriti Bhramshat Buddhinashaha Buddhinashat Pranashyati. See, a pumsa, a person, Vishaya is the information that we are seeking through our senses. So when he pays attention to the Vishaya, the information, he is forming an association between his, let us say, I and that object. That is the Sangha. That association is the Sangha. That attachment is the Sangha. So once that Sangha has developed between his I and the object, let us say it is a flower. He says, beautiful flower. From that, he gets the desire, I want the flower. So, Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha. From that association, now he desires to have it. But imagine that somebody plucked it just as you were reaching it, and then this has gone into an emotional state of krodha or an equivalent. It could be a krodha or anything else, jealousy of any sort, dukkha, everything. From that krodha, then sammoha, there is that obsession there that has developed. You're always thinking about it. How did I miss that flower? How did that guy even steal it in front of me? I should have been the one I was a deserving candidate. If only I had the flower, it would have been so nice. Maybe I would have given it to my wife. So much goes on. That's the sammoha. Now, Smriti Vibrama here would mean two things depending on whose commentary we are reading. Smriti, in actual fact, is the text of the Vedic knowledge. Shruti and Smriti, of course. Shruti is the one which is heard. Smriti is later. So, in a way, whatever knowledge we have gained through that, it is all gone because that's wisdom. Ultimately, wisdom. So, what it means here is, because of that, your wisdom has vanished away. Okay. So, Smriti Bhramshat Buddhinashaha. From that, your buddhi, your ability to think with clarity, what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad has gone away as well. So, these are the downsides of what one may call as an attachment with the worldly things. So, the worldly things actually bring in a cascade of these kind of reactions. Now, we'll look at what Adi Shankara says, just the opposite. Opposite as in the uncovering. Satsangatve nissangatvam, nissangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nishchalatatvam, nishchalatatve jivan muktihi. So earlier, the association, the Sangha were not with the Sat. Sat is the truth, the absolute truth that we are seeking, the Atman. But that association, that Sangha was with anything else apart from Sat. So here, if it is with Sat, the Satsangam, if it happens, automatically the Nissangam, everything else is not going to make an impression for you. From that dissociation from everything else, you actually let go of the obsession or the moha towards them. And from that, you are actually able to develop the emotional balance, the sthita prajnata, the balance of the emotions comes into play. And from that, now you are laying your path towards Jivan Mukti. So that's the importance of Satsanga. There are several other quotes which can explain the importance of it. For instance, Chaya manyasya kurvanti tishtanti swayamatape phalantyapi pararthaya vrikshaha satpurushaha iva. Satpurusha is like a tree. What does a tree do? It stands in a hot sun. It bears fruit, gives shade, gives wood. Everything is taken by others and it does all this in a selfless manner. It's not expecting anything in return. That's the nature of a Satpurusha. Why would I let go of such a Satpurusha? I won't. And same does Bhartrhari say, Jadyam diyo harati sinchati vachi satyam, manonnatim dishati papam apakaroti, cheta prasadayati dikshu tanoti kirtim, satsangati kathaya, kim na karoti pumsam. What does the company of Satpurushas do to men? It removes the darkness from the ignorant minds. It brings truth in their words and speech. It directs them to the precise path of advancement. It removes sinful tendencies. It purifies the mind, and it spreads their fame in all directions. So, this is how we need to understand. And I finish with this quote, which is going to convey the message. Satsanga is not necessarily about being with it's not about being with like-minded people. It's about being with right-minded people. Like-minded could be that we all share same kind of passion for something. But when it comes to a crisis, that person may not actually be there for you. It's not that everybody does it, but among those like-minded people, let's put it this way, actually, in a very more positive way. In those like-minded people, if there are those who are coming forward to help you and care for you and whatnot, they are the right-minded people. So not every like-minded person is a right-minded person. For a satsanga, you need a right-minded person and not necessarily a like-minded person. So we'll stop there for today. As I said, it's the end of our foundation. It was necessary to go through all this because Sanatana Dharma, through this presentation, is more about the cognitive application and the emotional application we are more interested in. And we are now actually going into the explorative phase. We already started that through the understanding of the importance of satsanga, and we will continue from next Saturday onwards. Right. So if anybody has any comment or a question, we can take a few before we end for today.
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So we'll bring it to a close then. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkhabad bhaved. Om shanti shanti shanti. All right then. So I'll send a few videos here and there, and perhaps a few blog write-ups. Please do read them and work on a satsang. If you have a satsang already, you are part of it, stay there. If you don't have a satsang, develop one in your vicinity. Right. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you.